Hello, DevOps friends. Man, you are looking good today. You don't have to say anything, Marcus. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Welcome to my belated Thursday live coding stream. Today, yes, I do. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of infrastructure automation. Welcome everyone. Hello, Moo, or Division by Zero, or hello, Metod Isokolov. How you doing? Today we're doing some automation. I'm starting a little bit late today, but because I had a call that needed to be scheduled at the same time as my usual live stream start. And I actually thought that I'd just cancel today. But then I said, hey, there are so many nice people out there, and it's so great to have conversations with you. I'm a little bit addicted to this live coding racket by now. And so I thought, yep, why not go live, and let's see, maybe we stop at 5, maybe we go a little bit over even. We'll see how things develop from here. And since I'm already talking, let's make this interactive. If you have anything that you'd like to ask, if you'd like me to explain something, or if you have a question about Linux administration, Ruby coding, software engineering, IT careers, all kinds of stuff that is in my wheelhouse, feel free to ask, feel free to share. If there's something that you are excited about and that you think I should know of, an open source software that you've recently discovered, or something that you are having fun with, like a new side project or something like that. Did you get a new job? These are the things that I'd love to hear about, so don't be shy, pop into chat and say hello. All right, so any updates since Tuesday? No, I don't think so. Tuesday was a little bit of a weird stream. I tried to do some writing and I never got into the flow, and so I didn't do much except having great conversations and a nice game of words on stream. We should do that today again, and let's see if we can beat that dreaded level 13. But first, I guess I need to do some work. Today was the second time that I was pulled out of bed earlier than I wanted to, because of temp directories on some of our servers running over due to some application not cleaning up after itself. And yeah, that's definitely not a reason why you should get pulled out of bed by on-call duty. So I already started building an automation that makes sure that temp directories get cleaned out and don't run over for no reason. And I'm going to finish that today because, yeah, I swear this was the last time that PagerDuty got me out of bed because of such a banalitude. And I'd say let's get right into it and let's do some work and have a nice little conversation on the side, shall we? So let me get prepared here. What we need to do is get to our cookbooks. There should be a branch already. Why isn't there? Did I only think about that stuff and actually not do work on that? Yeah. I can't remember doing any work on that. So let's fetch the issue that I've created. There should be something I assigned to myself. Let's see. Here we are. Four months ago. Time passes you by, man. That's unbelievable. Okay, so that's issue number 874. Which means we're going to update our master branch. And then I'll use the alias that I already had but didn't know about, GNB, for git new branch. And that new branch is going to be called 874, so GitLab can associate my changes with this issue, and then we'll call it temp cleanup. That's easy, and then the question is, where do we implement that? We have lots of cookbooks to pick from. We do have a few low-level ones that would probably be useful. I'm thinking of the System Freestyle cookbook here that does things like hosts file updates, kernel cleanups, for example, kernel packages, old kernel packages with all the header files and stuff like that also take a lot of disk space. So we have an automation in place that will clean up those packages, and I think this is the right place to also do stuff like cleaning up a temp directory, which means that we are first going to go into here and bump the cookbook version right away. So that's going to be a break bump minor. It's a new feature, but not a breaking change. So that's 420 now, which means we go right into the change log and write 420 with today's date and added cleanup job for TMP directories. Now, that's the first two of our test items that we are going to check with our test suite already done, a new version that doesn't yet exist, and a corresponding changelog entry. Now, how is this organized at the moment? Yeah, the default recipe already includes quite a few of these external cookbooks, and recipes in this very cookbook. And I think our new recipe should also be part of the default set. But yeah, we might also make this available as a public interface, so to say. As a background, I'm just considering, will this recipe name start with an underscore because it's going to be an internal recipe that's not supposed to be called from the outside because it gets included by the default recipe automatically, which is probably going to be the main use case, but I don't see why we shouldn't be able to call this from the outside as well. So it'll get a normal name. We call it temp cleanup.rb. Another style issue, are we going to use underscores or not? Since we're not doing plain Ruby programming, underscores in the file name don't correspond with, say, class names or something like that, so we are pretty free to decide, but hey, why not? Why not make things a little bit easier to read? We don't want to run into the experts exchange issue here, do we? So let's get started. Balthazar, welcome to the stack. Well, I did mention it. Brings back memories, doesn't it? Curse of being old. Oh yes, but there were times where you couldn't avoid getting them in search results. And then you clicked on it and ran right into a paywall. Okay, so actually, I don't even remember the tool that I was intending to use. Maybe I left myself a comment here. No, past me didn't account for my lack of long-term memory. So I actually need to spin up the test VM simply to do an apt search for the tool that I'm going to use, because that's cleaning up temp directories is of course a problem that has been solved yet already. Yeah, that's why I mentioned it in the first place, by interspersing underscores. You can actually clearly delineate where words end and the next word starts. So yeah, let's do exactly that. Let me see what the names of our test suites are. It's a default, hosts file, and kernel. In this case, we're going to focus on the default side of things. So I need to make sure it's available both for the legacy version and for our more current operating system. So let's actually spin up both default test suites, which I can do by simply not giving the full test suite name, so it'll run all matching versions one after another. And once the Ubuntu 16 one has started, I can start doing my research by doing a tks default Ubuntu 16.04. Just have to wait until it's available, which is now. And while Chef is still setting up the machine, which I'm not that interested in at the moment, I can already start researching. Chef is just doing an apt update, so I'll wait until it's finished.
Flush the bombers, get the subs in launch mode. We are at DEFCON 1. DEFCON
1. Shari makes art. Another raid. Thank you so much. Welcome, raiders. And I can say that attack and defend now work. So raiders, use the attack command, and viewers use the defend command to maybe get the upper hand. How are things, Shari? I hope you had a great stream. What did you do? And hey, I think I'll need to defend my own channel here. Am I alone in that? Thank you, Moo. Exactly. Hey folks, welcome on this nice little Tuesday. You are looking good. I just started, and today I'm going to do some infrastructure automation for a very banal thing that still keeps getting me alerted during my sleep, which is temp directories running full because of some applications that don't clean up after themselves. And so I guess we'll have to do that. And today I'm going to extend a cookbook that we already have, our central and quite generic systems cookbook, to have a part where temp directories get cleaned out. I guess everything that is older than 2 days in a temp directory isn't really temporary, so it needs to go. And since we have to run that on a few hundred servers, of course, automation is the name of the game, and that's why I'm going to code the necessary infrastructure code in Ruby, or to be more precise, using Chef. And I hope that's going to be fun for both me and you. Working on some new emotes. Oh, that's a lovely one. Man, I wish I was able to do my own emotes, but all I can come up with is getting some more abstract icons and turning them into emotes and badges and stuff. Eventually I need to commission someone who has more of an art sense to do that for me. Shari, are you taking commissions? Okay, test suite is finished, and that means I can actually start looking for the tool whose name by now I already forgot. We might have to talk eventually.
Can't even see anything.
Yes. Apologies. I switched to talk, and that was really helpful. Yeah, that's exactly why I introduced it. Do you know what movie that was from? It's thematic, of course. Okay, let's do an update just to be sure. Okay, let's see, apt search, temporary? Bingo! See, with the clue I gave you, it wasn't too hard. And I definitely have to put that on my list of things to watch. I haven't seen sneakers for so long, and every time I get to sit in front of the TV, I'm blanking at what to watch. So I've started using an app to track the stuff that I'd like to watch. And here we go. Sneakers from 1992. I'm using the Sequel app on my phone for that. Not to be confused with the graphical interface for MySQL. Or the Ruby gem for MySQL. Plex playlists, that makes sense, but that would require that I already have the movie on my media library. Shari, I will. Thanks for the raid. It was really fun, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Now, Temp Reaper, that's exactly what I was looking for, and it's available for 16 as well. Well, yeah, the temp directory cleanup thing has been an issue for longer than Ubuntu Xenial. And on codes, thank you. I forgot to do a shout out for Shari. I apologize for the lack of form here, and let's do another shout out. For codes as well. Oh, I can't. Okay, so I'll have to put that on the back burner. Yeah, of course. I mean, setting up a cron job that does this exact find command is, of course, an option as well. However, I can think of quite a few scenarios where that is a little bit too simplistic. First Ruby programmer. Well, I'm happy. I'm not sure if... Am I happy? I'm a little bit worried now because of all the expectations you might have. But yeah, happy to be the first Ruby programmer to meet you on Twitch. And I hope you're going to have fun. It's not pure Ruby that I'm going to do today because the automation system that we use for our hundreds of Linux servers is Chef, which is not only written in Ruby but also uses Ruby for the actual automation code. And so you'll see some pure Ruby, but today I guess it's going to be mostly Chef resources, which do hide the actual Ruby a little bit. Trump, hello. Yes, last week someone gave out 20 community subs. Actually, you know what? I need to add them to my list of supporters, because 20 community subs, that's nothing to... That's definitely something that should be highlighted. So where do I store this stuff? That's in Dropbox, streaming, Full Stack Live. I guess it's in overlays, supporters. Yeah. So we'll add HMeter74, no idea how this name is actually pronounced, to our list of supporters, so they'll be in the scroll at the end of the stream. And hey, if you want to be in that list as well, you can either subscribe here on Twitch, or you can go to ko-fi.com/monospacementor and either do a one-off or a membership. All the support is appreciated and helps me to do more learning content around Linux and Ruby. So yeah, feel free to support me there. That's that. Duke did redeem an RTFM. Are you serious? Is there an RFC 9405? Let's find out, shall we? RFC 9405. No way. Last year. Okay. Brilliant. Well, I guess we'll do this. Enhan Codes. I actually watched you a few times learning Vim. I'm using NeoVim. I did use Vim at the beginning, and I think so 2 years ago, around that time, I switched to NeoVim and gradually then converted all my NVim script stuff, almost all of my NVim script stuff, over to Lua, especially when I started using new NeoVim plugins that are easier to configure with Lua. But the nice thing is the transition from original Vim to NeoVim is quite easy and simple. Meta Diesel of us, do you not like VS Code? I tried it a few times. But to be honest, and that's probably just because of my history, the terminal is my IDE. With NeoVim, I have a very capable code editor. All its plugins really make the experience convenient and quick and efficient. And then I have the shell with all its commands that I can use for all the other stuff like git commits and things like that. So it's not that I dislike VS Code, I just feel more efficient using the stuff that I've been using forever. I started using Linux in 1993, so it's been a while, and I feel sufficiently effective and efficient using my terminal. I mean, it's convenient to just hit a few buttons and install a new VS Code plugin and have all its conveniences. I don't mind people using that. But yeah, with NeoVim and the terminal, I am pretty good. And I don't think I could be more efficient with an IDE for the stuff that I use. And yes, I agree with Enhan Codes. It feels a little bit cluttered. And I see a lot of people making the same argument as Balthasar, especially when it comes to the JetBrains IDEs. For example, in my case, that would be RubyMine, because RubyMine is really, really good at parsing code and relating code. So many times people say, if I write new code, I use Vim, but if I have to inspect legacy code or code that I have inherited from someone else, I tend to use RubyMine because I can quickly navigate between files and find out where was this method defined and things like that. So there are definitely cases where a full-fledged IDE has its advantages. It's just not a use case that I usually encounter in my work. No shade on VS Code at all, or the people using it. Hello, Owen Coates. Owen, how you doing? Welcome to the stack. Don't be scared. It's easier than you think. There is a specific point when it clicks, when you realize, oh, there is method to the madness. And then you become really, really efficient. And I can say that because that's exactly what happened to me. At the beginning, I was used to more GUI-oriented editors. So back in the day when I used Linux, I used Emacs as my editor. in a window, of course, because why would you not use a window-based editor? And I only used Vim when I logged into a server where Vim probably was the only editor installed by default, which has changed by now as well. Nowadays, you also have other editors pre-installed like Nano. And I never bothered with learning Vim beyond the most basic commands. Basically getting into input mode, getting out of input mode, and getting out of the editor. And at one point, I saw other people use Vim, and I thought, maybe if I put in a little bit of effort, this will be more of an interesting experience. And that's when I actually basically forced myself to use it for a while. And only then I realized, hey, this thing is really not just for masochistic nerds. It's really useful. And yeah, since then, I've been using Vim and, as I said, then NeoVim. And Vim Motions is definitely one of the points where it needs to click when you realize, oh, I can navigate to the next semicolon. I can actually easily select the contents of this method, stuff like that. When you start to grasp these things, then Vim becomes a real power tool. I mean, you can use Ed, but that's more for proper neckbeard Unix sysadmins who have too much time on their hands. I mean, I'm really retro, as you can tell from my stream layout, but I'm not that retro that I really want to deal with a line-based editor. Maybe if I get a printer terminal at one point when I have the space for it, I might go back to Ed. We did actually have one class at uni where the professor did Pascal programming on an IBM mainframe from the 1960s. And of course, the only editor available on that machine was a line editor. So he basically forced us to do programming like in the 1960s. And I think I hated it. Because, yeah, I guess it was related to getting a grade and stuff like that. So it wasn't fun. It was really just inconvenient. Nowadays, I would be excited to do that again, but back then I didn't really appreciate being forced to use that technology. Well then, Temp Reaper it is. No, first we need to redeem Duke's RTFM. So let's get back to this. Alrighty. Need to have a drink first. Okay. Let's turn the music off. AI sarcasm detection. Insult your AI without offending it. A dramatic reading of RFC 9405. Abstract. This RFC proposes a framework for detecting sarcasm in AI systems and provides guidelines for using sarcasm without causing offense. By training AI systems to identify linguistic patterns that indicate sarcasm, we can improve their understanding of human communication. The guidelines offer a light-hearted approach to using sarcasm in a way that is both effective and respectful. without crossing the line into offensive language. Status of this memo: this document is not an Internet Standards track specification. It is published for informational purposes. This is a contribution to the RFC series independently of any other RFC stream. The RFC editor has chosen to publish this document at its discretion and makes no statement about its value for implementation or deployment. Documents approved for publication by the RFC editor are not candidates for any level of Internet standard. See Section 2 of RFC 7841. Information about the current status of this document, any errata, and how to provide feedback on it may be obtained at rfceditor.org. Introduction. As AI systems become more integrated into our daily lives, it's important to consider how we communicate with them effectively and respectfully. However, one of the biggest challenges in communicating with AI systems is detecting and interpreting sarcasm. Sarcasm is a form of language that relies heavily on context and tone, making it difficult for AI systems to understand without a deep understanding of human communication. In this RFC, we propose a framework for detecting sarcasm in AI systems and provide guidelines for using sarcasm without causing offense. By training AI systems to recognize linguistic patterns and contextual cues that indicate sarcasm, we can improve their ability to understand human communication and avoid misunderstandings. The guidelines provided in this RFC offer a light-hearted and humorous approach to using sarcasm in a way that is both effective and respectful. By following these guidelines, users can enjoy the benefits of sarcasm without risking damage to the AI systems or offending the AI community. Overall, this RFC offers a practical and entertaining approach to one of the biggest challenges in communicating with AI systems: detecting and interpreting sarcasm. Section 3, AI Sarcasm Detection Protocol. The AI Sarcasm Detection Protocol, short ASDP, proposed in this RFC is a framework for detecting sarcasm in AI systems. The protocol consists of two main components: training data and sarcasm detection algorithm. Training data. To train an AI system to detect sarcasm, a large dataset of sarcastic and non-sarcastic language samples must be collected. This dataset should be diverse and representative of the language and context in which the AI system will be used. The dataset should be labeled to indicate which language samples are sarcastic and which are not. The labels can be either binary, sarcasm or not sarcasm, or graded. For example, a score indicating the degree of sarcasm. Once the dataset is prepared, the AI system can be trained using natural language processing, NLP techniques. Popular NLP techniques for sarcasm detection include machine learning algorithms such as support vector machines, SVMs, naive Bayes, and deep learning models. Section 4, Security Considerations. The AI Sarcasm Detection Protocol proposed in this RFC has several security considerations that should be taken into account. First, adversarial attacks. Adversaries can attempt to fool the sarcasm detection algorithm by injecting non-sarcastic language samples with linguistic patterns and contextual cues commonly found in sarcastic language. This can lead to false positives or false negatives and compromise the reliability of the AI system. Privacy. The dataset used to train the sarcasm detection algorithm may contain sensitive or personal information, which must be protected from unauthorized access or disclosure. Malicious use. The ability to detect sarcasm can be used maliciously to manipulate or deceive individuals or groups. It is important to use the sarcasm detection capability responsibly and ethically. To address these security considerations, it is recommended to use secure communications protocols such as TLS, RFC 8446, or HTTPS, RFC 9110, to protect the transport of sarcasm detection requests and responses. Additionally, the data set used to train the AI system should be carefully curated and protected from unauthorized access or disclosure. So far, RFC 9405. I hope you enjoyed it, Duke. Let's catch up with chat. Let's see. All right. Owen said cool keyboard collection. Yeah, there was a time when I tried to get my hands on any good-looking keyboard that I could get hold of. But by now, my keyboard collection is pretty much complete. I have quite a few nice keyboards, and I did learn that there are real differences between keyboards. And so I kept the nice ones and sold the others. So by now I have a bunch of keyboards that I can choose anytime I want to have something really nice under my fingers. And let's be honest, the keyboard is the way that we interact with our computer. And having a nice and ideally ergonomic keyboard is always a good thing. Okay. At least I still have the name of the package on screen, Temp Reaper, because that's what we're going to install now. The first step in our recipe, and the recipe in Chef is simply just instructions about what to do on this particular machine if this recipe gets invoked. And so to give you a high-level outline, what we want to do is install the Temp Reaper package, optionally configure Temp Reaper to do the right thing, enable and set up and enable a cron job that does the cleanup regularly, and that's basically it. Edits X Ronnie on YouTube asks, are you a software engineer? You could say that, but I wouldn't call myself a software engineer because that's not my main profession. I'm a system administrator by trade and have been working as an IT trainer as well, which I started to do again over on monospacementor.com, where I'm giving courses and mentorship and things like that. And as my day job, I'm the CTO of a small team of web operations experts. We run a managed hosting platform for WordPress and Drupal, especially for websites that need high availability and high performance. And for this day job, I'm doing work right now because, yeah, we have the issue that sometimes our temp directories run over because applications don't clean up after themselves. So just as I had to do when my kids were small, we need to do that for them. And the first thing that we need to do is actually to install a package. Funnily enough, Copilot already knows what I'm going to do. This is... Every time this happens, it's really, really spooky, isn't it? I keep talking about Temp Reaper, and Copilot actually picks up on that and does stuff for me. That's that. Now in our test VM, we are going to take a look at what happens if we install Temp Reaper. So let's do a why do it manually if we can do it automatically already? All I have to do is add the temp cleanup recipe to our default recipe, like this. And now I can run the TKC, the test kitchen converge command again with the temp cleanup recipe now integrated. It will automatically be run, which means Chef will install the package for us. For how long have I been coding? I programmed my first line of BASIC in 1984. I am an old man. Oh, yes, I actually, I didn't think that Chef would now run this recipe on 2 VMs. I just was wondering, why is this taking so long? But I have a VM for each of the operating systems that this recipe needs to run. And so that's why it's taking twice the time that I expected. Beth has asked what kind of BASIC that was. That was Microsoft BASIC on a Commodore VIC-20. The VIC-20 had BASIC built in. It was actually where you ended up when you switched on the machine. There was no DOS prompt or something like that. You landed right in a BASIC interpreter. And so there wasn't much else to do than start programming in BASIC, which I did from day one of getting the machine, which was on my birthday. And from then I went on, of course, and learned new languages, but not on the VIC-20. Well, I did some 6502 assembler, but not too much. I never got into stuff like demo coding or these amazing demos and graphical applications. But yeah, no Apple II over here. The VIC-20 already was quite expensive. I think basically I think it cost twice the amount that it would have cost over in the US, simply because of imports and stuff like that. Just recently I started reading old Byte magazines from the day, and looking at all the adverts in there really drove tears to my eyes, realizing how much I would have been able to afford if I were born in the US. But yeah, it is what it is. So I went on, got a Commodore 128. I skipped the 64 phase and went right for the higher level machine. On there, I had actually the opportunity to learn Pascal, because you could switch the 128 from Commodore BASIC or Commodore operating system to CP/M, because it already had a C80 CPU built in too. And so I could actually use Turbo Pascal for CP/M, Turbo Pascal 1.0, something like that. Then I got to a Commodore Amiga, which was the last Commodore machine I got myself, where I learned C, because that was the language that you used to program the Amiga, if you didn't do it in 68,000 assembler. And yeah, then I got a PC, and the whole spectrum went wide open. By now, I have probably learned, or at least dabbled in 10 to 15 different programming languages. Ronnie, you wouldn't have had to mention that. Even your mom was 2 years old. Oh, God. I'm not quite... Well, yeah, I could. By now, I could be a grandfather. Get your walker right. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at what the TempReaper package actually contains. So let's list the package contents. TempReaper. I'm just curious if there is a configuration file.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Dennis, welcome to the stack. Thanks for following. I really appreciate it. Usually we use a newer Ubuntu version, and that's why I also am testing for Ubuntu 20.04, as you can see here. But we have a few legacy systems that, for reasons, we couldn't update or can't update or will eventually update. So there is a little bit of legacy stuff that we have to take into account here. So if I can, I'll still support Ubuntu 16 here. And at one point, yeah, we'll drop it off for good. The buffet for senior night. Looking forward to that. Now, there is user has been temp reaper, which is the binary. There's a man page for that. And there is an tempreaper.conf and a cron job. That's brilliant. Okay, so we need to get hold of that configuration file, because if we want to modify that in Chef, then we need to take control of that configuration file, and there is a way to get that configuration file right into our cookbook templates. I just need to remember how exactly. There is a way. Is there a test kitchen exec? No. Doesn't even work. That's because I didn't use bundle exec. It's kitchen. The program is named test kitchen, but the binary is named kitchen. Yes, there is a kitchen exec. So what I have to do is kitchen exec default Ubuntu. Well, let's hope the configuration file hasn't changed between these versions. We'll see about that. And then what do we need to exec? I simply want to cat etc tempreaper.conf. If that works, I need a -c as well, I guess. Yes. And does this need to be quoted? Probably. Possibly. Maybe. Yeah. Because what's happening now is that it just executed cat, and cat is now working, waiting for its standard input to have actual stuff to output. So if I say hello, it might actually echo that back. No, it doesn't. Well, probably because of terminal reasons. Let's try again with the whole command quoted. Yep, that's what we wanted, and we can now redirect that into templates default tempreaper.conf.erb. .erb is a Ruby syntax for templates, where you can actually intersperse placeholders, and that's exactly what we need. Balthasar asks, how goes the FrySteel rebrand? FrySteel IT is the name of my company. When we started back in 2010, we were clearly located in Germany, where I was living at the time. And so we didn't think of a more international name. But by now, I've more or less come to regret that choice, because it's really hard for our customers to recommend us to other customers because they can't pronounce the name. And the prospect can't remember the name. And so that's part of the project that I have been talking with our marketing agency earlier. That's exactly the reason why I started late today. We just had the kickoff call earlier, so we haven't made any progress on that front, but we definitely talked about that for a few minutes, and we'll circle back to that because, of course, we need to consider different arguments here. Going with a new name, of course, has all the branding advantages that you get with a new name, and the opportunities. On the other hand, sticking with the old name also, of course, means that we will retain brand recognition and things like that. So there's going to be a discussion to be had. Now, the templates file that I just created still has stuff in there that doesn't belong there. That's just the execute command line here. Yeah, and then we'll have to get rid of the indentation. So that's that. That's exactly how the original file was like. So if I extend my recipe now to write a template, etc temp reaper.conf with the source of temp reaper.conf.erb and the action, I guess, update, and an owner of root, a group of root, and a mode of 0, because that's an octal number in Ruby. 0644. No, not dash. That was accidental. That means Chef will now write this configuration file, but it will only do that if it's an actual update. And since our template should be 100% the same as the file that's already on disk, Chef will do what it does. The term here is idempotent, which means if there isn't a change, then Chef will also not make a change. That's not necessary. And overwrite the file with the exactly identical content. The Lemon is back. Hello, welcome to the stack. Duke asks, how do you usually go about major OS version upgrades? Just make sure everything is properly backed up and then do the recommended way for Ubuntu to dist upgrade? No, actually, we usually take the opportunity of getting newer, more capable hardware, or at least virtual infrastructure. We simply set up new infrastructure and deprovision the old one. And that way, for example, we can avoid issues like we had recently where a database cluster actually got into trouble because the SSDs were nearing their end of life and started to become slower, which of course basically throws a wrench into your database performance. By doing these upgrades more regularly and actually replacing the hardware or the virtual instances, we can avoid that stuff. Even with virtual instances that basically stay the same because, say, we just installed them a few months ago with the old operating system, but now it's time to go with a new one. And we basically replace one VM instance or cloud instance with a basically identical one. That still gets rid of cruft that was laying around, say stuff that didn't get used anymore, old packages that weren't used anymore, configuration files that weren't active anymore. All that stuff you can get rid of by doing a thorough house cleaning in that regard. And since everything here is automated, that's actually pretty easy. We don't have to go through every new machine manually. We simply provision a new server. If it's bare metal, it gets provisioned by our data center, or we shoot ourselves a new cloud instance. Then we install Chef on there, point it to the right Chef server, and that's basically it. So setting up a new machine is quite easy. It's more about the whole change management around it that's hard. Sometimes this needs to be coordinated with customers, or there is a whole chain of dependencies where you can only upgrade system F if you first upgrade the systems E, D, C, B, and A. Stuff like that was what's in part holding us up and is part of the reason why we still have Ubuntu 16 machines lying around. On the plus side, another thing that was taking us a long time was actually upgrading our recipes for Ubuntu 20, for example, because from 16 to 20, there were lots of changes where, for example, a specific package wasn't available anymore. That's why I wasn't quite 100% sure if Temp Reaper would be available both on Ubuntu 16 and Ubuntu 20. Maybe Temp Reaper in the meantime was abandoned, and on Ubuntu 20 you would have to use a different package or something like that. These changes are the real challenge if you update your infrastructure code. It's not running the same infrastructure code on newer machines. It's actually getting your old infrastructure code to fully work on newer machines. That's the challenge. But I'm quite confident that most of the stuff has stabilized by now. So if we soon add Ubuntu 24.04 to our arsenal, I'm pretty sure that the stuff that worked on 20 will work on 24 as well. With a few exceptions, as always, but I expect it to be smooth sailing. And yes, you can clip that and play it back to me in a year's time. Now, let's put this to the test. Let's run another TKC. And we should see that the template resource did not get executed because everything already was how it is supposed to do, how it is supposed to be. Let me check with chat. The Laman is working on an app in Django. Logout is not working properly. Okay, that means your session still keeps sticking around even though it should be thrown away. Kill all the cookies. Why don't you just clean your browser cache? I mean, you could display a page where it says, your session has now been officially terminated. Please clean your browser cache. That would work, wouldn't it? Ooh, you're getting an error 405. Okay, that's an interesting error code. I don't think I've ever seen a 405. 404, of course, and 401 and 403, and even 406 with APIs. But what is 405? Can someone look that up for me? Duke writing a lot of text here. Any recommendation to smoothly do a DNS and name server move? Causing too much of a disruption? Moving from DigitalOcean to Hetzner Cloud? Move all that over to Hetzner. Well, the key is lowering the TTL values for your domain and domain records far in advance. So those TTL changes can actually propagate, even if that takes a day or two or a week. But at some point, these TTL values will be propagated across the internet and stored in every cache that there is. And then you can actually change IP addresses either for your NS entries, so actually point to new name servers from your from your actual domain. Or, of course, you can also change single DNS entries that way. So if you lower, for example, the TTL to 300, that means everyone on the internet by then should know that they can cache the entry only for 5 minutes. And after that, they need to refresh their cache, which will basically make sure that the change goes over smoothly, and within a few minutes, even if it's not 5, even if it's 7 or 15, your changes will propagate across the internet, and then you can relieve the whole DNS system a little bit by then setting more healthy TTL values, again, like 86,400 for 1 day of caching time or something like that. So preparation, as always, is the key here. Lower your TTL values far in advance of your actual change, then it should go over quite nicely. It's also handy, for example, if you make mistakes, so if you make a typo or something like that, it should then just take another 5 minutes for your correction to also propagate. 2 actions failed. What did fail? Let's take a look. Update is not an action for template. Okay. We need to have, I guess, create does include update. Okay. But just wanted to be more explicit here. And thought, well, create is always the default, and I guess now I know why it's the default, of course, yeah. If we are using create anyway, and we even leave that off completely because it's the default, then that means that it must include updates because that's what our infrastructure code is supposed to do. If it just creates the file and never touches it again, that doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, sometimes I need to be reminded of a few things. Nice, now it works. And let's scroll back. Where did it do its stuff here? As you can see, here are the 2 resources that I've programmed so far. The apt package for TempReaper should be installed, but it says up to date, so it doesn't do anything. And the same applies to the template. It was supposed to create or update the file, but the file was already up to date, so it didn't do anything. Which is great because that way you can repeatedly run Chef and it'll only take minimal time to finish instead of doing all things all over again and just touching files where it doesn't have any use at all. Exactly, Duke. And there's another reason. For example, having everything in one place is also always useful. I'm very guilty of domain hoarding, as Moo can tell you, and at least having the DNS for all these domains at one place instead of having them scattered between DigitalOcean and Hetzner and Heroku and other places is definitely also worth the effort just to move stuff around and have it at one place. Because more often than not, I had to look up where is this domain even managed when I had to change an entry after years of domain operation. And that's just not fun. Now, let's take a look at that configuration file, because, yeah, the question is, what do we need to do here? So as you can see, there is this basically an environment file. This pretty much looks like it's going to be executed as a shell command file, right? As a shell script. Pretty much. Okay. Temp time. In Etsy default RCS if it's there, else temp reaper time 7 days. I recommend setting the value in Etsy default RCS, as that is used to clean out /temp whenever the system is booted. Oh, that's actually an interesting information. I don't think we are setting that, but I think this is the optimal opportunity to do so. RCS, is that where this is handled in Ubuntu nowadays? RCS.d, okay. Anything about temp? Lots of stuff here. There's a screen cleanup. Okay, that's probably for the screen terminal multiplexer. Which which is a good idea to clean up these session files from time to time. Let's see. Yeah. Interesting. So, and yes, that's Balthasar. That is what I was going to say earlier, but forgot. When I said that a simple find command would do the job as well. A command like temp reaper can be a little bit more intelligent going about things. For example, I'm not sure if it does, but it could check with tools like lsof if the file in question is still opened by a running process, and might then decide not to delete the file even though it's older than we want it to be. And that's all stuff that the find command won't do for you. Here's the same thing. You will have session files from screen or tmux in your temp directory, and apparently this script here tries to find out, is this still a living session? And in that case, of course, it won't pull the rug under that poor operator who still has a screen session open, even if that session has been running for a week. That does make perfect sense. I can't see anything about temp, though. Maybe I need to be a little bit more robust here and actually try this. No, not that. Rather that. Oh, check root boot clean. Okay, that's this one here. Check root boot clean. Interesting name. Let's take a look at that. S09. What am I? Oh, yes. rcs.d. Why do I do cd? That's not what I wanted to do. S09. Check root boot clean. Boot clean after check root. Okay. Clean temporary file systems after the root file system has been mounted. At this point, directories which may be masked by future mounts may be cleaned. That's actually clever. Sometimes a temp directory gets mounted over /temp because, for example, we are using a storage volume that has more space than the root partition, or we want to actively not use the root partition for our temporary files because that is an operational risk. That makes sense, but still, if there's just the /tmp mount point directory, that might get used, or rather abused, for temporary files, even though the actual temporary file system is not yet mounted. So it's a good idea to clean that out before it does. That's nice. And that then pulls in init functions and libinit boot clean.sh. Where do I set the value, though? Temp reaper tells me it's the temp time value, but that's not in here. So let's find out. Temp time, I don't suppose it's in here, no. How about the default directory? Ah, yes, there is an RCS file. Default settings for the scripts in rcs.d. There's temp time, su login, delay login, verbose, fs check fix. Interesting. And if we set temp time here, we won't have to set that explicitly for temp reaper. I do like that. See, sometimes it's really great to have comments, especially in configuration files, even though I'm not a friend of comments in coding. I treat comments as a last resort if code isn't expressive enough, and if it's not possible to make it expressive enough. Marcus, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy family life. So I guess we will take control of RCS as well. Yes, feel free to schedule a call. I'll be around. And the system cookbook here is definitely the right candidate to take care of RCS. I guess since it's not just about temp files, that needs to be separated out a little bit, but not too much. For the time being, since we are already in here, let's see what else we can do. We can protect specific files. And it says protect extra, so I guess some of these files are already protected, like stuff like screen sessions and things like that. Then we can define the temporary directories. Yes, that's something that we need to do. There is a delay. Interesting. Why would we need a delay? No idea, actually. The only reason I could think of a delay being useful is if we have a shared storage, like an NFS share or something like that. And multiple machines have their temp directories mounted via NFS, and by having random delays, we can make sure that not all machines hit this NFS share at the same time when cleaning up their temp files. But that's a little bit far-fetched, I think. I would never think of putting my temp directories on a shared storage. But anyway, it's there, so there was a reason for that, as Chesterton's fence tells us. Okay, and down here we have actually we actually set values here. And of course, we need to make those variable by introducing what Chef calls node attributes, which is basically values that we can assign to specific hosts or groups of hosts. And that way, the temp reaper configuration can be as custom for a specific host as we want it to be. Now, we'll take these variables that are set by default and make them attributes here in this file. And our latest convention was we'll use the defaults.rb file to define the defaults for the particular cookbook, which means all our values should be in here. Not only the temp reaper stuff, but also what we've written in the kernel.rb. There was an approach of setting attributes for each recipe, but that often doesn't really make sense. It's not so clear-cut. And our new convention is going to be the defaults file contains the attributes for the cookbook itself. And if we have to define attributes for other cookbooks on which we might be depending, for example, then we'll create attributes file with the name of the particular cookbook in question. So I'm going to get rid of the kernel.rb and move that to defaults.rb. And the kernel.rb can actually go. And since there aren't any attributes that we are setting for other cookbooks, that's it. And now we have to turn this into node attributes, which always are values under a specific namespace. This is a deeply nested hash. The first level is always the name of the cookbook. And then there is a value below that. In the more distant past, we actually nested this even more But that comes with the problem that you then have to check multiple levels if they even exist. So if I have to check if a value exists on the third level, I first need to check if the second level does exist before I check the third level. And that makes code just unnecessarily unwieldy. So what we are doing now is use value names, or key names actually, that are kind of nested. So as you can see here, there is the kernel underscore, which indicates that it's related to the kernel recipes, or the timesyncd slash underscore NTP value that is related to the eponymous timesyncd timesyncd recipe. Let me switch on do not disturb here so Discord doesn't get in the way. That means I'll have to take this part here, which will always be the same. We can simply add that here. That didn't work. How do we do this? Is there a way to paste that in for all four lines at the same time? No, it doesn't look like it. Well, if it's not possible, then we'll do it the other way. Then we need to basically downcase all that stuff, and then put spaces around the equal sign, and that's it. And since that is something that I have to do 4 times now, I'll use a vim macro. I'll use the Q macro. By pressing Q twice, I start a macro called Q. Then we have to do a surround this name by quotes. Then we need to surround the quotes with square brackets. That means YS a quote square bracket. Then we need to jump to that name and make it lowercase, GUW. Then we have to jump to the equal sign with F equals, insert a space, go left and insert a space. I should have used substitution here, which would have been easier, but hey. And now I can actually press Q to end this macro. And by pressing at Q, I can do these steps 3 more times. That's that. Duke says, best way for /TMP would be to get those fancy 61 terabyte Solidigm SSDs in a RAID 60 configuration. Obviously. I think I would dispute that because RAID 60 is unnecessarily slow. I would use a RAID 10 with 4 disks. Doesn't make any sense anymore. I'm aging myself because having additional disks just to spread the write load doesn't really make sense if heads aren't involved anymore. So yeah, so just 2 disks in a RAID 0 configuration. That's what I meant. So we can interleave between the 2 disks just to avoid bottlenecks here. You probably would have each disk connected directly to a PCIX slot, I guess. I wouldn't use anything else. But I would assume that those SSDs come with PCI even? Or are those just new SSDs? Not sure. Yeah, CES was just over, right? So I guess those were presented there. So that's that. We have our attributes defined exactly the way TempReaper does it by default, and I'm quite happy with that. Still don't know what the delay is about, but I also don't mind the cleanup being delayed by 256 seconds or something like that. So let's go back to our template. And here we have to replace the hard-coded values with the node attributes, which means I need a placeholder here. And here I can now reference the node attribute by node system underscore freestyle. And then it's basically going to be the same name, just lowercase. So I'll make things easier for myself again. Yeah, a little bit of manual work needs to be done. That's node. Wait, let me just copy that. And now we need the names, so I'll grab that name. Paste it here and make it lowercase. I could do another macro, but I guess it's not going to be much faster than what I'm already doing. GUIW, YW, paste GUIW. That's that. And that way, those values from those node attributes get inserted here. And again, if I run chef again, this still shouldn't make any changes to these temporary files, to these configuration files. Okay, yeah, okay, they are connected via PCIe. Otherwise, that really wouldn't make any sense. You need the bandwidth. So let's see up here, template, TempReaper.conf, still up to date, because even if we replace the placeholders in our configuration template, they'll get replaced with exactly the values that are already in that file. So Chef doesn't have to do anything again. Only if we change the configuration for our test machines, then that needs to change. What we could do, for example, we could change the TempReaper dirs in our test configuration for the default test suite here. So that's system freestyle TempReaper dot, was it dirs? Let's take a look. TempReaper dirs, yep. And we'll set that to temp dot and var temp dot. Now, if we run chef, it has to update the file. Mind you, what I just did was not change the default values of these attributes. I changed the actual values that will be applied to my test VMs here. That's what the kitchen.yaml file does. And let's see. Yep. Not only can we see that it had to execute this action, it even gives us a diff what it did. And it did replace the line with only /temp with the line that has /temp and var temp. Okay, brilliant. So it does work. Then again, we need to take care of rc.s. I'm not going to include that in temp cleanup because rc.s does a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is create an actual rc.s.rb, which pretty much says what it should do. And in that case, we will write another template. RCS, I guess, if that was the name. Again, we say action create. The source will be RCS. Yeah, it doesn't have an extension, so it's just going to be rcs.erb. Just have to indent that correctly. Owner will again be root. Group will also be root. And the mode will again be octal 644. And now we, of course, need to create that template. So we'll do another exec. This time of etc rcs. And we'll call the file rcs.erb. Let's make sure it's actually in the name. No, it's etc default rcs. Okay, see? It's always good to check first. Default RCS, and which means that's default RCS here. Again, it will need a little bit of cleanup because of the output that it does. But we have our RCS file. First line needs to go, and then the indentation has to go. And now, of course, we'll have to activate this line at least, where we have to set that to 0 by default. I think it's a proper... setting. However, I'm not sure what that means. If we set it to 0, that means it'll always get cleaned out at boot time, which does make sense. But what does a temp time of 0 tell temp reaper to do then? That would mean clean everything out every time temp reaper runs, right? That's something that we need to explore. But anyways, let's introduce a new node attribute here. I can use a snippet with the equal snippet. Equal this one here? No. Huh? This one. Yeah. But now it replaced both equal signs. And here we need node system freestyle temp time. No reason to be overly creative here. And of course we need to set that default attribute somewhere. So something like here. Temp time, and we'll set that to 0. Is that a default? I guess it is. Huh? Yeah. Or is it set to -1? If it's not set at all? I would assume it's 0 by default, even though it was commented out. It at least is convention to use the default values if you comment something out. So yeah, well, I'll assume it's set to 0 by default. Okay, and we have to include that in the default recipe as well, and it should be run before temp cleanup. Which means we can now go back to here, or more properly, the configuration here. Temp reaper time, max age of files before they're removed. Default the temp time value if it's there, else temp reaper time 7 days. Okay, so far it would have used 7 days by default because temp time wasn't even defined. And I think 7 days is actually a more sensible default here. I would love to see temp time clean out temp every time we boot our machine, because at that point temporary files shouldn't exist. Should be pretty pristine. But temp reaper should run something like 7 days, or 3 days, I would say. If it's the default of 7 days, I would say, okay, let's keep it that way. We can always lower that by defining specific node attributes for a host. But I wouldn't want to use the temp time value, would I? I mean, we could do something like... Now it's getting complicated, unnecessarily so, I think. We could do something like, if temp time is defined, then we'll write it here. Otherwise, we won't even define it. So we could do a Ruby block around this if or unless node. And that's where the hierarchy stuff comes in, system, freestyle, temp time nil. If that is not the case, no, wait, don't indent that. Otherwise, it won't even get written to this file. And then we would actually set this to nil by default. That's as close as to the original state we can get. I'm turning into Yoda. Duke said, yeah, that's, wait, I guess lowering it in specific cases where there's quite a lot of stuff being dropped in the temp directory makes more sense. Yeah, I think so.
I know this.
Danny Spatula Hands, which is a very interesting Twitch name. Welcome! Happy to have you in the stack. Thank you for following. Okay, let's take a look at how this works. This time it will overwrite RCS, but instead of having temp time commented out, the line will be gone completely. Oh, there's an error. There's an error. Oh my god. What did I do? And what's the time? Okay, 4:30. What did we do? For example, we don't have a recipe RCS. Yes, because that's written differently. Even though we have case-sensitive file names. I'm inclined to fix that. It's just too expressive, writing it exactly this way. Which means the include should work now, right? Hey, Danny. Thanks for joining chat. How's life? Let's try this again. This time it works. Let me see, how does RCS look like now? Yeah. We could even, because what's ugly now is that this comment doesn't have a, so this comment here doesn't have an associated entry anymore, which is ugly and confusing, and I don't like confusing. So either we include the comment in the thingy, but I think I'd rather do an else here and restore the original line. It's a little bit more code in here, but for someone who is inspecting the machine, it does make a little bit more sense. And code in 2024 doesn't cost us anymore. So there's no reason to say, okay, that's an unnecessary condition or doesn't make sense to write that. Element of least surprise is always a good thing. But now we should see that line, shouldn't we? What did I do wrong? Yeah, for, one thing is that's just ugly Ruby code. Unless something is nil, we have to swap that around, and as I can see now, that is not what the code that I wanted. We need this here and then the Ruby else. Otherwise, it wouldn't be correct template syntax. So if it's nil, then we write the original line, and if it's not nil, then we'll actually construct a line with its value. That looks good to me. Let's try this again. Okay, and now we have the original line in here. Good. That also means we should have a test here in default, and we should create tests corresponding to recipe names now, which means we should have an rcs spec.rb where we create a test. Describe file etc default rcs. That's almost correct, Copilot. Thank you, but I need double quotes here. Oops. Its content should match beginning of line temp time equals 0. Yeah, let's use 0 as a value. That's not going to be the case right now. So if we run these tests, but I'll run them on only one instance now, default Ubuntu 16.04, just to speed up things. We have one failure. The 5 existing tests were successful, but there is no definition of temp time equals 0 because that is commented out by default. But that should actually work if we go in here and set temp time to 0. So it's not nil anymore in this test case. It's nil by default, but not in our test. If I run the test, it will fail again because we didn't run chef. So I need to use TKC again to converge this VM one more time. And if you appreciate my explanations here, please consider taking one of my courses at monospacementor.com and or supporting me on ko-fi.com/monospacementor. Now we've converged this, and if we run our tests again, all 6 are successful. Nice. Okay, now we have a temp time defined, but still I would like to make temp reaper time variable as well.
Unit system. I know this.
Welcome to the stack, the bad bossy. That's kind of you to follow this channel. All right, so I guess, well, all that stuff gets defined down here, doesn't it? Uncomment, here's even the temp reaper time from above. It's a little bit strange that all the explanations are up here and then the values get set down here. Yeah. But, no, but if I think that's not okay or that's inconvenient, then we can fix that. Why shouldn't we? We can actually move this up here. And make it a, what am I doing? No, it's not default, it's no. Oh, sorry. Getting confused. That's not the correct syntax, Copilot. I'm sorry. We need to have not even that. We need an equal sign. That is almost correct. Yeah, we need this. Node frustrated temp reaper time. Now this is going to get set every time. So it will never adhere to temp time, except if we set temp reaper time to the same value explicitly. But that's fine with me. And then we'll move that stuff to where it is actually explained, which I think is just a little bit more user or administrator friendly. Okay, nice. So temp reaper time does have a default value, doesn't it? Nope, not yet. So let's give it one. That's temp reaper time. And we'll give it a value of 7. So after 7 days of continuous operation, temp directories will be cleaned out again. And you know what? Let's be opinionated and set even temp time to 0 by default. So temp directories get cleaned out every time a system boots. Because I can't think of any reason why not. That is actually quite nice. So now, of course, if I set temp time to 0 by default, I don't even have to set that value here. But we do set the temp reaper tiers with a custom value, and we should actually test that in a test as well. So We need another file here. That's temp cleanup spec.rb. And here we'll describe the file etc tempreaper.conf. Its content should match, not exactly delay. I'm not interested in delay. I'm interested in, what am I interested in? Temp reaper time equals 7. Oh, it's a 7D actually. It's a string value. Interesting. So yeah, it'll be much easier to say 4 weeks. Then it's going to be a 4W, right? That's sensible to assume. So we are talking about temp reaper time. Reaper time equals 7D. End of line. Yeah, it makes sense to check end of line. Well, yeah, yeah, it does. Okay, and we should set a default value correctly here. We're already using strings. However, why am I using single quotes here? We always use double quotes if possible. Otherwise, Robocop will hate me. And who wants to be hated by Robocop? Okay. And then if we set temp reaper dears, oh, what did I do? Then we should test those as well. Not here. Somewhere here, but let's first end this. No, actually, that's going to be another line in here, right? Its content should match. And since we have slashes in here, we can actually change that into square brackets. CS ping pong, and prefix it with %R to make this a regular expression. Otherwise, we would have, if we use the usual slashes to wrap the regular expression, we would have to escape 5 slashes here with a backslash. That makes things completely unreadable. So it's better to use the %R syntax here. And that is pretty much it. So let's converge. Almojit asks, is this a Rails app? No, it's not. It's Ruby, but it's not Rails. It's Chef. Chef is infrastructure configuration code because this is used to automate the setup of hundreds of Linux servers, which we are running for our hosting platform. And so this is Ruby coding, but it's not for the web. It's for infrastructure. Also called configuration management. Now that it's converged, let's run the tests. Both our test for RCS and for tempreaper.conf should work, but there is one failure. Not two, but one, and that is our temp reaper time doesn't work. And that is because temp reaper time is using single quotes here and not double quotes. Since this is probably a shell script here, disguised as a configuration file, I think we should actually use these single quotes just to make sure we don't have any strange effects. So the test needs to be changed to use single quotes here. And with this test fixed, it should now be successful. Amojit, I actually do Rails coding as well from time to time because the dashboard for our managed hosting customers is written in Ruby on Rails. And that's because Ruby is our main language here at my company. But I don't do enough work on that application, to put it more politely to myself. I should do that more often, but time. Okay, so we have RCS with temp time equals 0. We have tempreaper.conf with a tempreaper time of 7D, and that's how this expression would look like if I had written it with slashes to enclose it, which that looks more like ASCII art than anything, and yeah, that doesn't really make sense. So the %R syntax is much more useful in that regard. That's that. The only thing we have to do now is make sure the cron job is actually set up. But I think that is the case automatically. Let's take another look at the tempreaper files. There is a cron daily tempreaper, so tempreaper gets run daily. Let's see, cron.daily tempreaper. Yes, of course it exits if the tempreaper binary isn't there. And other than that, it will eventually read in its configuration file, right? So at some point it needs to do that. Where does it do that? Strange. It does try to get the temp time from etc default RCS, which does make sense. I guess wait. It tries to use tempreaper delay, even though it reads its configuration script or file here. So by that time up here, tempreaper delay can't be defined yet. That's a little bit strange, but hey, that's not my problem. If it is set for some reason, it gets apparently saved in another variable here and then reused, I guess. No idea why that's the case, but I don't think it's relevant for our use case anyway. Edit tempreaper.conf to remove this message. Show warning. Okay, there is a warning built in to make sure that people actually configure this file. And of course, we'll have to remove that because we are properly managing this file. So show warning shouldn't actually be in here. Okay, that's I'm happy that I spotted that because otherwise, yeah, that wouldn't have worked. Tech support, welcome to the stack. Very nice to have you. Now, let's converge this another time. TKC, test kitchen converge, which applies my changes to the test VM. It did remove the show warning and the comment that goes with it. Very nice. Which means if we actually run tempreaper now, it should give us a warning, but it's not sufficient. We need to pass in a time. So the time, interesting. Wait. Yes, I can't call temp reaper directly. What I should do is execute the cron job. Etsy cron.daily temp reaper. Wow, this is taking quite a bit of time. Why is that? Is it waiting for something? Because this VM shouldn't contain a lot of temp files, except if var temp is full of stuff. I didn't check that. But I can't imagine it would take that long anyway. Something is wrong here. Let's find out what it does. Well, we can always run that with bash-x to see where it's actually running. So now it gets run with a nice level of 10, which is also a nice touch. It does use our 7D. It excludes stuff from temp. It then runs on temp and var temp as instructed. So it actually takes that long? What is it doing in there? I mean, it runs at nice level 10, but still. Do I have to strace that? I'm confused. Is temp reaper... Wow, that actually took that long. I'm pretty sure... Oh, I think we've discovered the meaning of temp reaper delay. Is that a interval in microseconds between files that get deleted? No, it just waits for 256 seconds. 256 seconds would be a long time. That would have been 4 minutes. I don't think that command ran for 4 minutes, but what is it then? Now I'm curious. Lots of housekeeping here. Default is 256. It just gets passed in, unfortunately. So I'll have to look at temp reaper itself. I guess it's a shell script too. Let's find out. File, sbin, temp reaper. No, it's user sbin. As it should. Oh, it's compiled. I'm not curious enough to actually go and look at its source code, but man temp reaper should probably give us the information we need. Delay. I should have thought of that earlier. Delay execution at the start. It's actually 256 seconds. Did we actually wait for 4 minutes in there? Huh. How very strange. This is an option useful in cron scripts to make the execution of temp reaper less predictable, thus making things a little harder for those who would attempt to use temp reaper to thwart security. Huh? That sounds a little bit ambitious. Because I'm pretty sure if you pass that value on the command line, a simple PS will show any attacker what the delay is going to be. But yeah, okay, not worth going into. We have our cleanup job, and let's do at least a manual test if it does its job. Oh no, I can't. Well, it's too much work to create a file that would be dated back 7 days. Let's let's trust that temp Reaper is going to do what it's supposed to do. Let's recap, because I'm already nearing my stream ending time. We have set temp Reaper time to a default of 7 days, which makes sense. Might be a little bit too long for some systems. I'm not really sure if that alert early this morning would have been prevented by 7 days. Maybe we need to lower that for our own machines here. Well, actually, I think I'd rather err on the side of caution. And since it's a cookbook that is specific for our company, as you can see at the suffix _freistil, we're not going to open source that, so it doesn't need to be that generic. And I think for our infrastructure, 3 days is more than enough. So let's make that the default. We are also setting a temp time of 0, which is not the default from the Ubuntu setup. So we are already deviating from the default. Why not do the same here? This delay doesn't really make any sense to me too, but hey, I invoked Chesterton's fence earlier, so let's keep it in there. That's that. I guess it's time to run the full test suite to see if everything is working correctly. Before I do that, I'd like to do another converge and another verify, just to see that things are actually working. I also do not expect that temp Reaper works any different on Ubuntu 20, so I'll trust that this will run successfully on 20 as well. And the full test suite will then tell me if that's the case. We still have one failure now, and that's because I changed the value, of course. So we need to update the test. Instead of 7 days, we need to test for 3 days. See, it's... Oh, wait, I can actually run the test again because I changed the test. Don't have to converge. Yep, that's correct. Which means we can actually commit this and send a merge request. And then no, let's run the test suite first before I do a merge request, because if there's any embarrassing error in there still, I'll discover it before I submit a merge request. So what we're going to do is to do a rake test, which will not only run all VMs, it'll also run styling checks, and there is a few things that we can change. So we should use file read rather than IO read in our metadata file. That's legacy stuff in there, but no worries, we'll use file read. Then there is in kernel purge. Oh, interesting. Instead of using hash, we should then use 2h. Yeah, that makes sense. That's an interesting syntax. It's been years since I wrote this, so it's good to revisit that from time to time. Let's see. That's in kernel purge. Here. Okay. Oh my god. What is that syntax? Package name equals. I'll turn that into a hash by... Oof. Did I copy that from somewhere? Because that is really ugly. "2h" is much better here. We'll go through the installed packages. We map them with the code that's in here, which will still give us an array. An array goes into map, gets transformed by map. In the end, we take the result and turn that into a hash, and now we can use keys on that. That does make sense, but that older syntax, yeah, thank you, Rubocop. That's definitely something that is an improvement. And in temp cleanup spec, it tells me the %r literals should not be used with square brackets, but with curly braces. So let's fix that quickly. Temp cleanup spec. That's another vim command, cs square curly. That's it. Let's run the test again. Yeah. As I said, that's very old code. And there is another instance where pass a block to 2h instead of calling map 2h. Oh, I didn't even know that was possible. That is interesting. I'm not sure if I understand what it means, or correctly what it means. I think what it means is, instead of doing map do, I can actually call 2h do. Let's take another look at pass a block to 2h instead of calling map 2h. And that's style map to hash. I guess I'll rather look that up. Rubocop style map to hash. Let's see if I got that right. Instead of calling map and then 2h on the result, we can actually call 2h and pass the same block. I did not know that. TIL. That's even more elegant. I love Ruby. Now that's more readable than hash square brackets map stuff. Yeah, that, oh God. Much better. Bada bing, no style issues anymore, and now it's going to run 6 different VMs and their test cases, which is going to take a while. And since it's 5 o'clock exactly, I guess it's time to wrap things up. I'm going to look for someone who we can raid. Actually,
It's a Unix system. I know this.
I have to look at my following list. Rachel is online. The raid button didn't show me that. Yeah, we're going to raid child codes. Going to start the raid, and I guess it's time to say goodbye. Folks, this has been fun, and it was productive. I'll submit a merge request, and we'll see each other maybe tomorrow at 2 p.m. Irish time, which is also 2 p.m. UTC. I'm going to do my office hour, where I answer questions from chat and from our Discord users. So if you aren't a member yet, join our Discord and maybe pop in back tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. UTC. I would love to answer your questions there. And if not, I'll be back next week, Tuesday at 2 p.m. and with another live coding session. So I'll see you soon. I'm starting the raid. Thank you for following.
Unix system.
Rap sexy. Talk soon. Take care. Oh! I'm an idiot. I pressed the wrong button. Come on. Let's try again. And aim better. See ya.